Hi, Mr. Freeland. For the last year or so, your party's been down at least 10% of the Conservatives in the polls, and there's going to be an election within a year, roughly. Why do you think the Liberals in your party are in a position to be able to negotiate with the Trump administration, considering the life of your government seems to be, at least to an elections point, coming to an end?
Thanks for the question.
I love when they ask questions like that. There is something fundamentally wrong with Chrystia Freeland on so many levels. Is she on crack? Is she on cocaine? Is she on meth? What the heck is wrong with her? Why is she tweaking? Why does her brain not function in any really normal way? I unfortunately don't have the answers to this, but this is something that I've been observing for a very long time. And whether like she actually has a medical condition or a brain condition, or she's just like, I don't think you could just be this dumb. I think that there's something actually wrong with her, because she proposed today a fall economic update without providing a fall economic update, which is extremely bizarre because last time I checked, we're in the winter season and fall is kind of behind us. And now everywhere across Canada that's, pretty cold is already getting piles of snow. And she's really, really behind this. And then also the reporters are attacking her in a way that brings me so much joy, such as actual mainstream media reporters saying, you guys suck. You guys are tanking in the polls. Everybody hates you. What is going on? And when reporters are now turning the page and asking Liberal MPs such as Chrystia Freeland, Justin Trudeau, or even Jagmeet Singh these types of questions, I just can't help but smile. And I want to share the joy. I want to share the Christmas spirit with all of you. And we can watch Chrystia Freeland go into full panic mode. Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to another video, everybody. Before we get into it, I do want to encourage you all to smash the like button and subscribe if you haven't already. It does really help grow the channel. And if you want a matching sticker like the one here on my microphone, along with other stickers, I have packs of stickers that are available for purchase. Link down below in the description and the pinned comment below. And if you use code SUNSHINE, all in caps, you'll get yourself 15% off. Without further ado, let's get into this video.
Okay. So I'd like to start by talking about the good news on inflation. Inflation was 2% in October. That means for the past 10 months, inflation in Canada has been within the Bank of Canada's target range. We also now know that wages have outpaced inflation in Canada for 21 months in a row, and 1.4 million people more are working in Canada today compared to before COVID. Earlier today, we had the third meeting of the Canada-US Cabinet Committee. We talked about three principal issues: the Canadian economy, the Canada-US economic relationships, and the border. On the Canadian economy, we talked about action that we need to continue to take to attract more investment, more capital, and more jobs to Canada in this changed and changing global economic environment and with the incoming Trump administration south of our border. On the Canada-US economic relationship, we talked about ongoing work members of the government are doing and measures that we will be continuing to take to align Canadian policy with that of the US when it comes to China. And on the border, ministers talked about work that is happening to ensure our border is safe and secure, to ensure that Canadians control who comes to Canada and critically control who does not, and also to ensure that our southern neighbors can have the same sense of security when it comes to their border with us. And ministers talked about measures to ensure both of those things. Maintenant, concernant les annonces, premièrement, une annonce sur la...
We'll skip to the French.
Doit bénéficier. Second announcement, we're taking the next step in lifting the GST on new student residences. As you know, last year we lifted the GST on new apartment construction. That is kickstarting the construction of 300,000 new homes. Today, as we said we would, we are launching a consultation to expand the GST exemption to the construction of student residences. We know that the lack of homes for students is a really important pressure point on housing generally, particularly in some of the Canadian cities where housing is a most urgent issue. The consultation runs from today through to January 20th. And it applies to not-for-profit universities, public colleges, and school authorities. The third thing that I would like to emphasize, this is an important measure. It was already announced that it would be coming into force. OSFI announced this. These are the so-called straight switches, and it will give people who have a mortgage renewal coming up more flexibility, more opportunity to shop around without passing another stress test. We think that this offers people some really important flexibility. Okay.
We need cooperation instead of insulting mayors and other partners across Canada. That's not how we build housing and affordable homes, in particular in Canada. And that's why in Budget 2024, our government announced the most ambitious plan in housing in over 40 years. A core feature of our housing plan is a public lands for homes plan, which aims to build more homes more quickly on public lands owned by the Canadian government across our big country. As a first step, we launched in August the Canada Public Land Bank, featuring federal property that have been identified with high potential for housing. And since the launch, we have continuously been adding new and additional properties. Today, we are announcing that 12 additional federal properties have been added to the Federal Land Bank. These new properties include one property in London, Ontario, that could lead to the creation of almost 1,300 new homes, and 3 properties in Calgary, Alberta, that could unlock more than 400 new homes. The market offering processes for 5 Canada Lands Company properties in Edmonton, Calgary, Toronto, Ottawa, and Montreal have now closed, and evaluations are underway. The momentum is quickly building. 4 additional market offering processes from Canada Lands Company are launching today at sites in Dartmouth, Ottawa, and Calgary. Where appropriate, all of these federal lands will remain public through low-cost leases to reduce construction costs and support the building of more affordable homes. This will help housing providers focus their resources and their investment on building more affordable homes without having to bear the upfront cost of acquiring the land. This kind of incentive will thus speed up the process of building affordable homes. The 83 federal properties now in the land bank allow for the construction of more than 35,000 additional housing units, an additional step towards building 250,000 new housing units by 2031 on federal lands.
Do you agree with Premier Doug Ford that Canada should seek a bilateral trade deal with the United States and carve out Mexico?
Thank you for the question. Let me just start by pointing out that our trading relationship today with the United States is governed by the new NAFTA. You can call it CUSMA, you can call it the USMCA. This was Donald Trump's trade deal negotiated by him and Bob Lighthizer. Given the re-election of President Trump, the fact that our trading relationship is currently governed by the trade deal negotiated in that administration's first term is a really important guarantee for Canada and Canadians and for everyone looking to invest in Canada. The second really important guarantee of that relationship is the economic fundamentals. The reason we got to a good place with the new NAFTA is because our economic relationship, Canada's economic relationship with the United States, is a win-win economic relationship. It is balanced, It is mutually beneficial. It is based on two countries that have comparable wages and labor standards trading together. And since we concluded that deal, the relationship between Canada and the United States has become stronger. In particular, Canada is more aligned today than ever when it comes to with the U.S. when it comes to China. We believe that China's
Canada is more aligned today with China? Did I hear that correctly? Because if that's the case, that explains why you have so many Liberal MPs that are compromised by Chinese foreign interference. Come on. You can't make this stuff up.
policy of intentional overcapacity is unfair. It is a threat to key Canadian industrial sectors. It is a threat to Canadian jobs. And that's why we've imposed 100% tariffs on Chinese EVs, 25% tariffs on Chinese steel and aluminum. In so doing, we are also perfectly aligned with the United States. And that means we are not a backdoor to Chinese unfair traded goods. However, the same cannot be said of Mexico. And I have heard personally from members of the Biden administration, from people who have been strong supporters of President Trump and who are his advisors, very grave concerns about Mexico serving as a backdoor for China into the North American trading space. I believe those concerns are legitimate. And Canada, as a partner in the NAFTA trading area, shares those concerns.
Okay, just to clarify, does that mean you are open to trade talks that don't include Mexico? Because Trump has said, I understand Trump's deal, you've been mentioning that since he won, but he has said he will renegotiate it. So when those talks come up, does Canada have any hard lines on whether it still needs to be all three countries, or are you open to whatever terms Mr. Trump sets?
I chose my words really carefully, Marika. The key fact for Canada is the strength of our trading relationship with the United States. It's really important for Canada. It's also really important for the United States. Canada is the largest market for the U.S. in the world. Canada, for U.S. exports, is more significant than China, Japan, the U.K., and France combined. And the U.S. market is important for us, too. So at heart for us is the Canada-U.S. partnership. We have always recognized that, and that continues to be the case today.
Hi, Mr. Freeland. For the last year or so, your party's been down at least 10% of the Conservatives in the polls, and there's going to be an election within a year, roughly. Why do you think the Liberals in your party are in a position to be able to negotiate with the Trump administration, considering the life of your government seems to be, at least to an election's point, coming to an end?
Thanks for the question.
I love when they ask questions like that.
We are Canada's government today.
Unfortunately.
We are Canada's elected government.
Unfortunately.
And Canada today faces an international environment of really significant challenges. Our job as a government is to respond to those challenges, and we are. I will also say, I believe very strongly that when it comes to big international challenges, our country fares the best. We do the best job for Canadians when we take a Team Canada approach. And over the past few weeks, I have been traveling around the country, and I've been doing a lot of roundtables with different industry groups. I've met with the oil and gas sector. I've met with the steel sector. I'm meeting with the aluminum sector this afternoon. I've met with the banking sector. I've met with AI leaders. I've met with technology leaders. I've met with the nuclear sector. And all of that has been to help our government understand what are the concerns and what are the opportunities that different leaders across the country see for Canada today. One thing that I've emphasized in all of those conversations is we need to take a Team Canada approach. This is a serious time for our country. I really believe that when it comes to the Canada-US relationship, Canada has a lot of strength that we bring to that relationship. We have a lot of leverage that we bring to that relationship, and the fundamentals are very positive. But I don't want to, and I think that there are a lot of real opportunities for us to do great things together in areas like critical minerals and metals, where we've been doing a lot already. In areas like energy security, including nuclear, where we've been doing a lot together. In areas like the Arctic, where we have a shared security challenge that we work on currently together through NORAD. So there's a lot of opportunity, but I don't want to minimize for you or for Canadians the challenge that we face. And when it comes to a big national challenge, the approach I am always going to take is to say, let's play together for Team Canada, and that's what I've been saying across the country. And I have to say, I, have been really comforted by the approach that I've heard from the Canadians who I have met. I can't say that everyone at every roundtable I've held is going to vote Liberal in the next election, but I can tell you everyone at every roundtable that I have held is totally signed up for putting on the Canadian jersey and getting on the ice and playing for Team Canada in this relationship. And I'm proud of them.
If I may add briefly, Chrystia has mentioned responsibility a couple of times in the last answers. She pointed to responsibility on the question of the filibuster in the House of Commons. She mentioned responsibility in working with the U.S. government, including on national security. And you've just asked about the forthcoming federal elections, which could take place anytime between now and the next year. On all cases, responsibility is a key word. And for Pierre Poilievre, who spends all of his time, including in the House of Commons, thinking about the next elections, he has to answer the responsibility question around foreign interference. It would be totally responsible for him to prepare for the next elections without him having his security clearance so that he can protect his members of parliament and his future candidates in that context. So responsibility is truly a key word for our government, but responsibility also applies to Pierre Poilievre.
This is so annoying. These people are government, and they keep bashing Pierre Poilievre and criticizing Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives as if they're the ones that are making any of the policies and decisions. Like, it's absolute insanity. I'm tired of it, man. Focus on yourself. Focus on bettering life for Canadians. Focus on just implementing good policies. But they can't do that. They just attack a non-government group. Like, it's craziness.
It's nice to hear that business leaders are on the same side, but folks in Parliament clearly are not. You mentioned Rona Ambrose in a scrum a few weeks ago. I've spoken to Ms. Ambrose. She was the Conservative Team Canada leader last time. She said she's not willing to work with the government because she's focused on making sure Mr. Poilievre wins the next election. So even if someone like Ms. Ambrose, who worked with you closely, who said's been a friend in this situation, is willing to try and get Mr. Poilievre elected, is it not clear that the Liberals in your government is not in a strong position to be able to negotiate with the Trump administration, who many of those people have repeatedly said they want Mr. Poilievre to win the next election?
Yeah.
With the greatest respect, Mackenzie, I totally disagree. I do consider Rona a friend, and actually she's been in touch with me in the past couple of days. I think that it is entirely legitimate for any Canadian leader to speak up and support any Canadian political party. That is a totally legitimate and reasonable position for people to take. We do have elections coming up, and we live in a democracy and people take partisan positions. That's how we choose our government. That's how we choose our policies. My own view is that when it comes to the very biggest issues, and COVID was one national example, big international issues, I believe, are another example. We are strongest when we play as a united country. And I am going to continue to call on Canada's leaders, Canada's leaders in business, Canada's labor leaders, Canada's leaders at other levels of government, to work collaboratively with us on a united Canadian position when it comes to the Canada-US relationship. The reality is, whatever party you belong to, you will benefit if we can succeed in continuing to have a strong, mutually beneficial relationship with the U.S. And the reality is also that whatever party you support, if we do not succeed as a country in having a strong, mutually beneficial relationship, you will be hurt. So I really believe that in this area, this is a moment for us to put our country first and set our partisan interests aside. And that is certainly going to be the approach that I take. And as I say, Mackenzie, I've actually been really heartened by the conversations I've been having. And I know a lot of the people I've been talking to are not fans of every single thing our government does. But when
No shit. No shit.
I have talked to them about the opportunities, but also the challenges this incoming U.S. administration poses. And I've been very candid in those conversations. And I've said, I really want your help. So far, every single person has said, yeah, okay, tell me what you need me to do. And I'm grateful for that.
Okay, we've got about 5 minutes left. 5 minutes left. Let's see how many questions and answers we can get in 5 minutes. Next question, Reuters.
Thanks. Minister Freeland, so you've been holding a lot of these meetings since the US elections, and as you also said that you've met a lot of associations and companies. What has been the major concerns of all these through all these meetings that you've got? And is there some kind of a specific contingency steps that you are planning to take? I mean, Team Canada approach is a good thing, but it's quite vague, right? Specifically, is there something that you are planning through these to mitigate these concerns?
I think the concerns are pretty self-evident, and they're the ones that we've been addressing at our Canada-US committee. I think, Canada's economic leaders are very aware of the importance of the economic relationship with the U.S. to our country. Many of them have also been very keen to point out to me the value that Canada brings economically to the U.S., and I've been grateful to them for pointing those things out and for being willing to bring those relationships they have to bear on the relationship. So I think the challenge and the opportunity is clear. The challenge is to continue to maintain I would say, most effective, mutually beneficial trading relationship in the world, and that is the Canada-US partnership. That's the challenge. And the opportunity is to find ways with this incoming administration to make that relationship and that partnership even more mutually beneficial. And I think certainly there are challenges. I do not want to understate those for a minute. But I also believe there are some real opportunities in areas like critical minerals and metals, in areas like nuclear power, in areas like the Arctic, in areas like energy security more broadly, where we can build and deepen that relationship.
I know that you have said earlier that Canada and US's trade relationship currently are on a much stronger footing. But we all know that DST, the Digital Services Tax, can still become a major bone of contention. Are you open to some kind of a compromises or some kind of concessions on that, if that actually becomes a major issue?
Canada's position on the DST is really straightforward. We simply believe that Canada should be on a level playing field, on an even footing with our other G7 partners. We think that Canada, with our very strong relationship with the United States, with our free trade agreement with the United States, should not be discriminated against relative to the UK, to France, to Italy. That's our position.
Okay, we can squeeze in one final question. Mickey Jurek from Politico.
Thank you so much. When is the fall economic statement coming out? And will, since I only have one question, if there is new spending in it, I guess, are we in a position where the government can cash manage going into the new year?
I don't have an announcement to make today about the date of the fall economic statement. I have no announcement to make today about the fall economic statement, and our government is committed to being a responsible manager of the country's economy and of the country's finances. As Minister Duclos has pointed out, I do think you should all be asking questions of the Conservatives, and they partake of that responsibility as well. And I don't think they're discharging it very well right now.
No, but you're in control of the country's money, so I guess are we in a position to still have money flowing to departments in the new year?
We will act responsibly. I am confident that we will be successful. I will say, though, we are a minority in Parliament, and our ability to govern Canada does depend on other members of Parliament being responsible, being true to their oaths to their constituents and to the country. And so I'm going to take this opportunity to call on them to be responsible as well.
This is so funny. Like, we are almost in winter and she hasn't released a fall economic statement or update. Like, it should have happened already, but it hasn't. And this is her grinning face of knowing that she is screwed. Everything that these people say and do, it just holds no value. It's absolutely bananas. I'd love to know your guys' thoughts on what just happened, what just transpired with Freeland, because she's providing literal nonsense. Like, the title of that video was this: Deputy Prime Minister Chrystia Freeland provides economic update. She did not do that. She did not provide a fall economic update. Like, this is crazy, man. What the hell are they thinking? No wonder they're absolutely tanking in the polls.